Ladies and gentlemen, I request everyone to kindly take your seats. We will be beginning with the next session. The next session is on human space flight systems, life support, health and habitability. As human missions expand, demand is rising for reliable life support systems and space health technologies. This session will examine habitat systems, medical readiness, crew health, nutrition, and commercial opportunities linked to human spaceflight. I would like to invite the chair and the moderator, Shri Sunil S, JD, GD, CRDG, LPSC, ISRO. The speakers, Dr. Sanjay Behari, Director, SCTIMST, Dr. Shivani Verma, Amity University, Ms. Jahnavi, Dangeti, Analog Astronaut, Human Spaceflight and Planetary Researcher, Crew Scientist, Dr. Ramkishore Shah, AIMS, New Delhi, Mr. Simon Jenner. Unfortunately, he is not able to join us today. He's a Senior Advisor, Astronaut Sales, Star Lab. I request all the speakers to please keep the remarks concise and within the allocated time. I now hand over the proceedings to the moderator.
Thank you. Very good afternoon to all. And welcome to the session like human space flight systems, life support, health and the habitability. That is a very interesting session we have today. I think a lot of eminent experts also there with me. Two are from the doctors, two are from the medical background, Dr. Sanjay Behari and Dr. Ramkishore. And we have one academia, Dr. Shivani. And we have one interesting candidate also who is an astronaut, a trained astronaut, and is going to become an astronaut within 2029. She is going to fly. Is it? Okay. Jahnavi is there. So welcome all to the discussion. And first of all, let me give a small introduction to what a human space flight meant for. I think we are all very comfortable here with the ground, means Mother Earth, what we are going to us. When you go abroad, everything you'll get. But when you go to space, we are lacking so many things. At least we don't have the gravity which we keep us everything in the food. We are kept on the food by the gravity. We have harsh environments, thermal, radiation, all the environments are there. But if you want to make a habitat there, at least some of the things we can manage there. Like other than the gravity, most of the things are manageable there, but not to the full extent of what we get it at the Earth. And even if you want to see the total, the pressure control or the oxygen environments, everything can be managed, but not to the full level what we expect in the ground. And when you come to the food also, the nutrition, the food nutrition, everything, it is a packed up food. You have to manage with the food what you are taking there. You don't have the liberty to do whatever you want there. All these things are the problems. But it is a fascinating area which we wanted to have venture into that one. So when you venture into it, you will find that a lot of opportunities are there. Even the commercial opportunities also available. So we have to explore how we can reap into that opportunities. So today we will have just a panel discussion to see what are the challenges in front of us and how we can look forward into all those things. We can have a quick introduction from your own expertise area. And first of all, introducing me, I am looking after the crew life cabin support system for the future Gaganyaan Bharati Antariksha Station. I am part of ISRO and LPS Liquid Propulsion System Center. I am mainly dealing with control systems for all satellites, launch vehicle. Along with that, this is one of the portfolio for me is development of the crew life support system like ECLSS for the future, the human missions for the ISRO. So I'll start with Ram.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Ramkishore Shah from the All India Institute of Medical Science. I'm the scientist working on the vision and the ophthalmology research, eye research. And recently we have started the microgravity experiment. In the last month, I presented the result in the ISRO SMPS conference. And this year, the AIMS signed the MOU with the ISRO for the human research. Recently, we have the categorized in the different phases. first phase we have just completed. And the second phase we started the retinal cell line. Third we started with the mice model and the animal model. So we are doing the microgravity experiment through the simulated microgravity with the clinostate experiment. So this is our recent research updates.
Thank you, Doctor. And Ms. Jahnavi?
Hello everyone, this is Dangeti, and I'm an aspiring astronaut, and also my work extends around analog missions and planetary research. Also, I'm an advanced scuba diver, currently working for conservation of corals and also replantation of them. And also, I'm a trainee pilot. And to make it clear, I'm not associated with any private space flights, and also I'm not flying to space in 2029. But I'm in a race to long-term goals of going to space someday. And yeah, that's all about me.
Thank you, Jahnavi. Dr. Shivani?
Hi, very good afternoon to all. This is Shivani Verma. I'm a professor in Amity Institute of Space Science and Technology. I'm also the director of Ingenious Research Solutions Private Limited. So, honored to be a part of this panel discussion. And as a person coming from academia and from space science research, today's topic of panel discussion is very interesting because it stands on the convergence of number of disciplines. It's not just space science. We'll be discussing number of other disciplines, biology, it has material science involved, it has mechanical systems involved, so it is going to be a quite interesting discussion. Also, as I would say, vice chair of one of the IEEE groups of digital twin technology, I would also be discussing how digital twin technology would be useful in future space flight systems. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shivani. Doctor?
Good afternoon. I'm honored and privileged to be here. I'm Dr. Sanjay Behari. I'm a neurosurgeon by profession. I was the head of Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences, Lucknow. And for the past 5 years, I am the director of Shri Chitra Tirunal Institute for Medical Sciences and Technology, an institute of national importance in Trivandrum, very close to ISRO. And we have a very close collaboration with Vikram Sarabhai Center, with Human Spaceflight Mission, and with Liquid Propulsion Lab. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I think you are carrying the legacy created by the Dr. Valitan here. Thank you. So when we start with the human spaceflight, I think we have a challenging thing. The habitat systems and how safe the crew flight has to be. Doctor, can you, Sanjay, Doctor, can you just touch upon the future engineering challenges in front of us to have a safe human flight? Now itself there is a safe flight, but safe flight it is there, but still what further we may have to have?
Yeah, so basically, before we come to engineering, we have to come to the human being within the engineering. And when you actually look at any person in space, there are several interesting changes which are taking place. One, of course, is the fact that it's a very aggressive atmosphere there. And I'll just tell you, let's talk about some, starting from disasters and then coming on to actual innovations. So first was Laika, the dog who was sent into space. And she died not of any euthanasia or something, but simply because of heat stroke. And she immediately in space and because of stress. Then you look at the Columbia and the Challenger disasters. Then you look at Russian Soyuz 1 and Soyuz 11 disasters. These were there. Then the other important thing is actual health issues which have taken place very recently. There was one patient, we don't know, one astronaut, he was just evacuated from the International Space Station. We don't know the disease, but in 2026 this has happened. One astronaut developed deep vein thrombosis and for almost 90 days had to be treated in space. And then there has been almost drowning of an astronaut in his space suit, and this has happened 3 times. And then there is another aspect to it, that when you are actually navigating the International Space Station, because of all the microasteroids that come, so it becomes very jagged and ragged. And 3 times it has happened that the glove has got torn. And actually, even a tearing of a glove can lead to boiling of the blood and instant death in less than say a few minutes. So, I mean, it's very challenging. As we progress further, I'm going to talk about some of the medical issues. But all these medical issues require specific engineering problems, those problems where space comes in, where we have to make space safe for human space mission. You have to have corollaries of that which are useful for medical science on Earth. Then there will be co-development where both are going simultaneously. And finally, we also have some very innovative solutions which will actually facilitate a long-term habitation in space. So I think these are some important aspects that we need to talk about.
Thank you. Dr. Ramkishore, I think now we have a lot of problems related to radiation. I think you are an expert in optometry. It means a doctor that specializes in that area. But if you think about long-term space missions, even if we have a thermal or radiation protection, whether it is going to adversely affect the human life, when you plan about Mars or moon colonies, whether we are going to face this situation.
But first, I am just address the habitability you have mentioned in the earlier, because the prolonged isolation in the cabin or maybe the space flight or separated from the family for the long year, 6 months, they are creating the mental stress. So the first of all, to create a recreation and suggested for the team member to directly frequent connected to the family or maybe the space ground teams. So to just engage more in the family talk, child talk to relieve the mental stress. Another will be the physiological 24 hours clock. So the 90 minutes of the Earth orbital movement, they are feeling 16 times the sunset and the sunrise. So here, the body doesn't adapt it as like a 24 hours clock. They are the main challenges for the adaptability in the space flight, inside the space flight. Another, we just lack of proper medication. The isolation maybe create the mental and the cortisol secretes to just create the cognitive symptoms. So better we can just engage more in the yoga, meditation, and some engagement in the ground support system to just rehabilitate the mental health issue. And the second one, we just ask about
long-term effect of radiation.
Long-term radiation, because when the spacecraft touching with the sunrise may be exposed to the maximum of cosmic rays, radiation, ionic radiation, they creates the carcinogenic radiation to just mutate the genomic levels like the DNA, RNA, and the carcinogenic maybe create the genetic problem. And the female astronauts maybe decrease the progesterone, and the male we have just decreased the sperm motility due to the radiation. And after the completing the space mission, they may be genetic or maybe reduce the potential of the reproductive risk. So this is the main issue for the exposure of the radiation in the space flight.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Shivani, I think now we are thinking about commercial space, human space flight missions. So now basically in our mind, we are thinking that the space is to all. But now at the present scenario, now if I want to go for a human space flight, it's all custom-made things. Like the crew suit is custom-made. Now your crew quarters is custom-made. But if you are thinking about a future, like the space accessible to all, what is in your mind? What you can think about like a space which is suitable to all the human beings, like irrespective of the gender, irrespective of the age? What do you think about it?
Yeah, actually space for all, it is a very important concept. Now we are going for commercial space flights, we are going for commercial space stations, lunar habitats, and eventually settlements. So we are expecting a sharp rise in the number of space travelers, and we are going to have a lot of diversity in terms of age, gender, maybe the cultural background, or even the physical abilities. So in this scenario, I think the technologies like unified design, technologies like human factor engineering and intelligent AI-enabled space habitats are gaining a lot of relevance. And I would also say digital twin technology is also gaining relevance because now we can have a personalized digital model of an astronaut which can communicate with the space habitat and update the habitat about its requirement. Accordingly, the habitat can adjust. And I would like to mention here that whatever points we are discussing, whatever technologies I am mentioning, it is not just a theoretical approach. If you look at the global scenario, look at the United States. There are a lot of companies like Axiom Space, we have Blue Origin, which are working on this concept. There is a NASA program that is Astro Access, in which during number of parabolic flights, the persons having visual, hearing, and motion impairments, they experienced weightlessness and they communicated to the researchers how to make space habitats more inclusive. They wanted to be a part of space habitat in future, and with their inputs, NASA would be planning space habitats. I mean, that is the approach we are going for. And not only United States, I mean, China through its Tiangong space station is working on similar concepts. We have European Space Agency, we have JAXA. And coming back to our home, India. So I would say here also this point will gain relevance. It is gaining relevance actually, because we are moving from Gaganyaan to our own Antariksh station to deep space mission. And I would say at the outset, we can include all these technologies like artificial intelligence, digital twin, or human factor engineering. And I mean, there won't be any need to include these technologies at a later stage so that we can have more inclusive space for all habitats. Yeah.
Thank you. And a question to Ms. Jahnavi. I think you have undergone a lot of training for the astronaut training facilities. Like, what further you expect in a human-centric design for the human space flight?
So before I go for future space systems, I want to give a heads up about what analog missions are. So analog missions are test beds for future technologies, and we simulate space on Earth. It's almost 99% it's going to be a space, but 1% it's definitely that we can't simulate, which is the gravity part. So we get isolated from outer world, and we live, work under confinement and stress that the sir was mentioning earlier. And I believe future space systems must be designed around people, not just the technology. As we go farther and longer from Earth, the crew comfort, the factors like crew comfort, crew sleep, and mental health, and also ease of operation becomes more critical. And one interesting lesson from ISS is their lighting system. Because Sir was mentioning earlier that usually crew experience a lot of sunrises and sunsets in a day in the orbit. So NASA had to develop a system or a lighting adjustment to manage the biological clock of the astronauts to keep them better and give them more chance to perform better. And this will actually help to understand how the crew is working under confinement and isolation. And as an analog astronaut perspective, simple changes like habitat design, crew privacy, and communications will actually create great impact in our performances. And this is why I believe these missions will actually help future technologies to test before they launch into the space.
Okay, thank you. Now, coming to the medical readiness, Dr. Sanjay, how we can tell that a crew is ready for a commercial long flight mission or for any long flight space mission?
Yeah, no, so of course the physical and mental fitness is very, very important. But let me just very systematically enumerate the challenges in a short-term mission and a long-term mission, very short. Yeah. I just want to enumerate some of them. First of all is postural hypotension. and autological issues. So if because of the rotatory movements and also because of the acceleration, there's a lot of issues required there, and we need a lot of neurotological tools to actually measure that. That's one important aspect which comes in. The other important aspect is, you have so many G forces which are at work when you're actually going in space and coming down. And we need tools as well as people who can actually withstand those forces. The third very important thing is that we have the circadian rhythm, the sleep disturbances. And what is so special about sleep is that some people can sleep anywhere and some people cannot. And the important thing in circadian rhythm is that you think it's just a simple thing of insomnia. But what happens is that there is a system in the brain which is known as the glial lymphatic system. And that glial lymphatic system takes away all the toxins from the brain only when a person is sleeping. And if the person is not sleeping, then the glial lymphatic system doesn't work. The problem is, when you're looking at Alzheimer's disease and early dementia, it is this glial lymphatic system which is actually responsible for a lot of dementia which is taking place because of inactivity of that system. And therefore, lack of sleep is directly related to dementia. So that's one very important aspect of an astronaut which needs to be done. The other very important thing is, of course, the psychological aspect. Because, in space you have so many people confined together, working in teams. And unless you have put people in that particular area where when you know their temperament, you know how they react to situations, that's a very, very important aspect. And that the psychological aspect is a very, very important aspect. The other very important thing is they have to be physically very fit. Because what happens is when there is no gravity, then there is breakdown of muscles. And when there is breakdown of muscle mass, this leads to release of myoglobin. And this myoglobin can actually cause kidney failure. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to actually exercise for nearly 4 hours or more in the brain. And we also need different tools to find out what muscles are getting broken down and what. The other very important aspect, which even in a week's time, people develop osteoporosis. Because of lack of gravity, there is decalcification of bones, and that leads to severe backache in a lot of these patients, in all these astronauts, which needs to be actually looked at. And therefore, this also requires something. The most important challenge, which actually nobody talks about, is visual failure. And the reason why visual failure occurs in space is basically because what happens is that the cerebrospinal fluid from the body, it's circulating all through the brain and spine. But what happens in microgravity, that the entire cerebrospinal fluid accumulates in the brain. And that leads to raised intracranial pressure. And because eyes are a direct extension of the brain, this raised intracranial pressure actually causes papilledema, which is swelling of the optic disc, which later on leads to optic atrophy. So many of these people who are very ace pilots later on actually develop a little bit of visual deterioration, which needs to be looked at. And then another very important aspect is that the hemoglobin levels go down so that your oxygen carrying capacity goes down. And also there is lack of immunity because of that. And of course, then there is one important aspect is that all your smooth muscles like heart changes, the eyeball curvature changes. And all these are actually coming up in space. And then a very interesting thing in radiation, you cannot actually prevent radiation from coming into any international space station. There will be some radiation which will be much higher than the radiation that you actually experience on Earth. So there were 2 identical twins, Mark and Scott Kelly. One was sent into space, and Mark Kelly stayed back, and Scott Kelly went into space, stayed there for 1 year and came back. And to their surprise, they found that because of radiation, there was change in the telomeres, which are small genetic components at the end of the genes. And when this changed, so this actually influences aging. So there was a complete change in the genetic pattern, and then it actually resolved again, and it came back to normal. And each of these components that I have mentioned actually requires very special skill sets. It requires very special tools to measure and prevent, and to make sure that the environment in space, especially for a long-term basis, has to be attuned to the environment on Earth. So these are some special challenges, and you need special people who can actually meet these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you.
When the person is going to 1G to 0G and the multiple G, surrounding in the long, deep exploration, so lower body fluid just start moving upwards to the head, and this pushes to the cranial nerve and increase the eyeball, the flattening the curvature of the cornea, flattening of the curvature of the retina. The most of the completing the mission, the astronaut becomes the hypermetropic, and the creates the a vision impairment, long standing way. Where, once the cephalic fluid goes inside the brain, it may be affect the nervous system and just start to the giddiness to the astronauts. Sometimes they are fainted due to the high blood pressure, because the hemoglobin just polarize in the high magnetic field. They are created in the, due to the cosmic rays and the ionic rays, they create the high magnetic field inside the spacecraft. They are hampering the flow of the blood, like the flow choking system. They are just decrease the movement of the hemoglobin, RBC, and the platelets. And the high radiation also just alter the bone marrow. They just form the blood platelets. They carry the oxygen from every part of the cell. And after deterioration of the oxygen supply, due to the creation the lower limb in the negative vacuum pressure, so it may be creates the hypoxic brain. After the long standing, they may be creates the hypoxia in the brain and the other parts of the body. This is the main issue in the long duration mission. Another is the short term and the long term. In the short term mission, the astronaut allow for the usually eating and the drinking the water usually, but in the long mission, they may be some closed system. They are not allowed frequently to eat and the drink because the water is not sufficient, and the recycling of the water through the sweat of the astronaut body, or maybe the urine, and recycle after 3 days, 4 days in the coffee and the other parts of the fruit. So this is the most challenging when we are going in the long, deep exploration on the mission.
Thank you. Dr. Shivani, I think now we have seen that when a crew undergoes a training, and he is extensive mental and physical training he undergoes. How do you think that, how long it will take the transition to happen from a ground to space, if at all he wanted to accommodate it from a space mission? How long, what is that you expect a transition to, that is a phase happen?
Okay. So I think the transition, it is very a smooth going process, because a lot of training is done at the ground level. Only after that the astronaut is sent to space. And one point I would like to mention here is, like Sir mentioned about NASA twin study. So after the NASA twin study, we found that the spaceflight has a very profound effect on the human biology. Right down to the gene expression and the immune reaction as well. Another case I would like to mention here is, which we very recently witnessed, all of us, the extended stay of astronauts Sunita Williams and Buzz Wilmore in orbit. So we can say that the orbital missions can be very unpredictable, and the extended mission duration can affect the physiological health as well as the psychological resilience of astronauts. So these points are very important to be considered when we think about transition from the ground station into the space. And now I would say the question is no more that can we send humans into space. That transition is not important now. The more important transition is, it starts actually after that, after humans go into space, how to keep humans productive, how to keep them happy, how to keep them cognitively, sharp, and more and more autonomous. Because as we are going into deep space missions, we require our crew there to be very autonomous in taking decisions, maybe for some medical emergency or any other type of emergency, be it operational readiness. So that is a transition that is required nowadays. And maybe we can take help of technologies like AI and digital twin and space omics, etc. Yeah.
Thank you. I have one more practical question to Ms. Jahnavi. See, you have undergone training. See, and I have seen a lot of literature telling that autonomous of the crew with respect, and there is a lot of conflict happening between the crew and the mission control center. But do you really think that crew autonomous is when such a challenging situation is there? Do you think crew autonomous is a must for the long flight missions?
Crew autonomy will be one of the most defining requirements for future Mars missions. Unlike Earth, low Earth orbit, the real-time support systems doesn't really work for the astronauts staying on Mars. Imagine, because it usually takes 20 minutes delay to communicate. Imagine there's an emergency or a life support system failure, and practically, astronauts or the crew cannot wait for 40 minutes to exchange a question and answer. He or she has to access the situation and act accordingly. So for that, the crew must require to have an advanced training, and also, as ma'am mentioning, autonomous capabilities of taking decisions, and also, if required, the automatic medication system should be developed for longer duration space missions. And during these analog missions, we also simulate communication delays and try to find better ways to perform good communications between, mission control and.
But if you really think, if there is a panic happening to the crew, whether it will adversely affect if you are given more autonomous control over the system. If there is a panic between the crew, no, you go for a wrong thing. Do you think like that?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
See, if the panic comes to you as an astronaut, if the panic button comes to you, and in that scenario, whether you will do some wrong mission process. No, but based on your training, what do you feel on that?
Okay. If I'm on the crew and if I really have an emergency situation, I would rather go do something than doing nothing. At least if that works, I'd be alive. And during my recent mission at MDRS, we did have an emergency procedure, and we have zero connection with Habitat, and we had to do an emergency calling, and then we had to walk for like 10 kilometers in burning sand. So it's always there.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Sanjay, we have long space missions. We know what are the problems like bone loss, muscle loss, everything is there, everything is. Further, one day or in a long future, we may have to relocate ourselves. That is what we are planning now. But to overcome this thing, you have any medical advancement or research going on this particular area?
Yeah, so at the present, I can comment on the present state of knowledge right now. The only tool which will work in space is ultrasound, a diagnostic ultrasound. MRI won't work, CT scan won't work. So we have to actually make ourselves well versed with a real-time ultrasound. And therefore, all people who are going into space should actually train themselves on diagnostic ultrasound at least, so that that particular information can be transmitted to the ground below, and you can actually get some information then. The second important aspect is this communication. The important thing is almost 80% of the diseases and their reaction, whatever, can now be predicted using either artificial intelligence or using various techniques. So they can, using a very logical flow as happens as we do as human beings, we have to construct computer systems which actually looks at the entire scenario, and then gives a very logical explanation for what the differential diagnosis is, what the provisional diagnosis is, then what the diagnosis is after the imaging and basic investigations. And another very important aspect which actually needs to be developed is spot diagnostics, so that one drop of blood by spot diagnostics, how do you actually transmit the entire information back to Earth and then transmit the actual information back to the station? That needs to be developed. And then the final point is that once the information comes back, then the crew has to be trained to actually look at these basic emergencies. However, one important aspect is there is absolutely no point in trying to stretch a mission if there is a real medical emergency. Exactly. The important thing is that the human life is more important than any mission. And it will lead to so much of negative publicity, it sets the whole mission down by several years if some real mishap happens. So if there is a real emergency which is undiagnosed, it is much better for the crew to come back to Earth than to try to do experimental things in space. And one important aspect is that our telecommunication really needs to improve to the extent that within a very short time, information can just go in and come back. When you're going to the moon, it still takes about 4 minutes if I'm not wrong. But when you go to Mars, it will take 20 to 25 minutes for any information to come back and forth. So, this is a very important aspect of the whole thing. So, if the 3 points that I mentioned is, one is to develop ultrasound and take it to an imaging ultrasound. Not only just looking at hazy images, imaging ultrasound. The second important thing is very good developing telecommunication systems. And the third thing is spot diagnostics. So that in one go you are getting all the investigation reports there. And the fourth very important thing is telling the crew the basic emergencies which can be anticipated and dealt with, and they can deal with them. However, don't take any chances. Also take the decision that this is one emergency I cannot deal with, and therefore we have to come back to Earth.
Thank you, Doctor. I have one specific question to you. See, long-term space missions, lack of fresh food, how adversely it is going to affect?
Fresh food?
Fresh? No, we don't have fresh food. No, if I go for a space mission of 365 days, I carry food from here or through a cargo, it comes as a replacement.
No
but
idea about
as a doctor, how do you find that?
But it may be some kinds of nutrients, because in the 1G they have some caloric value. Suppose the 100 grams contains the 1000 calorie, but we in going in the deep space or long duration, but we don't calculate it contains the actual calorie or not. So this is the suspicious, this is the more challenges for the giving the food to the astronaut. But I'm just asking the sir question. You have to mention the ultrasound. How can the calibrate where the more turbulence inside the spacecraft during the more turbulence maybe hamper the calibration or the seating arrangement of the even examiner, or maybe lay down to the crew members. Another
the vibration loads will be more during an ascent and descent phase only. Otherwise, on orbit, there will not be much vibration to the crew, other than the internal, like the machinery, what is happening, running inside the crew, the crew capsule. Other than that, it will not alter any of the things.
I have one doubt. While the transfer the data from 0G or multiple G to the 1G, any data lag or data loss behind the buffer zone of 0 and the 1G?
No, that comes as a packet data only. So there will not be much loss. It is now also communication is happening from satellite to Earth, by packet data system only. So it doesn't have much impact. Ma'am, Dr. Shivani, ma'am, there is one more question to you. It's somewhat whether it is a futuristic thing. Do you think that in future cooking of food is possible in a space mission?
Okay, right. So I would say cooking food in space is not going to be a scientific fiction, sir. Actually, we have to understand the different phases of space journey, space visits now. Earlier, it was short duration mission. So the astronauts, they could carry packaged food, or with a limited shelf life food could be taken there, and astronauts could have that. But now we are going for deep space missions. So at this stage, sir, I would say food is not just providing the calories, but it would also be affecting the psychology. for instance, I mean, she must agree with me. If some astronaut is having a fresh bowl of salad or freshly cooked vegetable, it will just uplift the mood of astronaut. So that is the point. And sir, this is not again something theoretical. NASA has worked on it. It has grown vegetables like radish and some other lettuce in International Space Station. And moreover, a lot of technologies have developed. We can go for AI. Again, AI systems are relevant here because they can monitor the, different parameters, temperature, humidity, and accordingly they can supply the nutrients to the plants that are being grown. We can have biosensors which can measure the stress in the plants. Accordingly, measures can be taken to see the growth of the plant. I mean, digital twin of the complete greenhouse can be made, and accordingly the parameters can be tweaked so that we have a good yield in the space atmosphere. And the most interesting is we can have 3D printed food. We can select the color, we can select, ramen noodles, spaghetti or egg noodles, and we can go for that. So it's quite feasible now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, ma'am. One last question, I think, if all permit. To Ms. Jahnavi. See, you have undergone the training, and now you are a icon, youth icon for the India. Do you think you will ignite the minds of the Indian youth to go for a human space flight as an astronaut, or will they come forward to have something role in the human space flight missions?
Okay. So my journey started with a simple curiosity about someone being on moon from stories that I've heard in my childhood. And that led me to pursue a lot of international trainings, analog missions, and research opportunities, and a lot of STEM outreach. And the main reason, I don't say I'm the only one who is in this industry doing such crazy cool stuff, but there are other people.
But one among the Indian, no?
Yeah. Luckily. So I believe celebrating every small step will actually create impact in coming generations. Because I have a personal experience. I come from a small town where people always used to think astronomy is astrology. So when I talk about stars, they always have this misconception. And now they're actually understanding what Jahnavi is trying to do. And I always believe that space is not a linear path or a single path. Space requires pilots, engineers, scientists, artists, everyone. Everyone belongs to space. And I believe the coming generations and everyone who is dreaming to be in space someday doesn't really have to have a clear path or perfect path. Just begin, and it will definitely lead to a good place.
Thank you. Wish you all the best for the next future.
Thank you.
Just one questions we can entertain from the crowd. I think already she has started standing there to threaten us. Maybe.
No, the question is for you, so I'll take that mic. So the question is to you, Dr. Behari. You spoke about accelerated degradation in terms of osteoporosis or visual things. I also hear that this is not a permanent state of degradation. Once they come back, there is an improvement back to the main situation. Are there learnings on that reverse process which can be applied for humanity on Earth, for non-astronauts who are living here, facing through those problems? Are there learnings from that reverse process that can be applied to treating those problems on Earth?
100%. That's the crux of the entire space travel. Whatever are the technologies which are actually being developed for space, the offshoots of those technologies are for Earth. When we talk about reversal of some of them, like for example visual loss, then it will take about 2 years. But then there will be some people who have developed optic atrophy. Then there will be no improvement in that. Especially if they're ace pilots, they can no longer be ace pilots. Supposing this muscle weakness, that takes a few months to actually improve significantly. My point now is that there has to be a paradigm shift in the way we look at space. Till now, we are looking at space from the point of technology. That, okay, now we have to develop a technology to get into space. Now we have to look at the human being behind the technology and build the technology around the human being. This is actually not being done to the extent that it should be being done. Because ultimately the entire exercise is to send a human being to habitat other planets and to actually go into space. And now we have to actually start from the human being, see how the human being functions on Earth, how to make the entire organization around him or her ergonomically relevant so that either the conditions which persist on Earth prevail in the space, or there are some iterations that we do which protect that person. So I really feel that there has to be a paradigm shift in the way now that we look at space. And the human element now has to come in anything that you do. A satellite in space you send, okay, will that satellite, which is already in space, in its geo-orbital satellite, if you're placing in some orbit, can it communicate with a human being in International Space Station? Those are the kind of questions we have to continuously ask ourselves. Any person we are sending even for a short-term mission, even a tourist we are sending for a short-term mission, okay, can we develop tools and techniques to actually measure the person's heart rate, blood pressure, vital parameters, all the various aspects of the human body, so that with this information, every time we send somebody on a mission, we are getting more and more knowledgeable about how it will happen in space and how the same things can be translated on Earth. Like, I'll just give you two examples. We have this, in space, you develop, because of this cardiomyopathy which develops in space, the heart, the entire heart changes, size changes. So what happens is rhythm disturbances occur, and there is sudden rhythm disturbance resulting in arrhythmias. And they have developed systems to actually tackle it remotely. So they can do that. But the same thing can be applied, has been applied to Earth. So now we have, we place systems which are present in the human being for 8 hours, 10 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, even a week. And remotely we can monitor the person, even on a mobile phone. So, there is a continuous interplay of technology which goes back and forth, which has a huge implication on human. There's one point I'd like to mention. I'm in biomedical device development. Shri Chitra has actually made heart valves, which have been implanted in 200,000 patients now. We just made, with HLL, a ventriculoperitoneal shunt. We have made stents, many things. I have realized one thing as a doctor. I had no idea about it. The most important thing about biomedical technology development is biocompatible biomaterial. Okay, the design and everything you can make, but to make a biocompatible biomaterial is the key. Once you develop that, then making a biomedical device is not such a big thing. So therefore, the same biocompatible biomaterial has to be relevant to space, the same it has to be relevant to Earth. I think that's an important aspect.
Any further question? And there is a paucity of time. Maybe one more question we'll entertain, and after that, you can always meet them personally and get the. Yeah, I think gender equality.
Thank you so much. Hello everyone. This is Shri Patil. I'm a space microbiologist myself, worked on understanding how microbial and microgravity affects on microbes and cellular level. My question is, when you are designing and developing those microbial or life science experimentation or say biomedical experimentation, what are the practical challenges in designing, developing, testing, and launching that in space from India that you have encountered?
I think you can.
I'll tell you, there are four or five challenges. The first is to develop a clean room on Earth, which is microgravity compatible. It's impossible to actually create zero gravity. So, to create a clean room which can be actually used for carrying out this experiment on Earth. The second thing is the flora and the fauna in space. When you look, bacteria have been taken in space and their character changes. So we have to study that. That's the second point. The third very important aspect is, are there some bacteria which are bacteria or viruses or even fungi which are radio resistance, which actually come in our spacesuit that we have no idea of. And that can they have the potential to actually infect Earth. That's an important aspect. The fourth important aspect of microbiology is that anybody who, supposing, develops some fever or a urinary tract infection in space, and urinary tract infection is a big challenge because, you know, the ebullition facilities in space is a big issue, right? It's a big challenge right now. So if somebody develops a urinary tract infection or any other infection, then how do we actually do a culture and sensitivity within a very short time and take it back? So these are some of the important challenges I think I have.
So I would like to add. Yeah, thank you. So I would like to add one point. When we are going for health monitoring of astronauts, I'm talking about deep space missions. So it becomes difficult to send data to the ground stations and go for analysis, right? So everything we have to do on board. So in that case, one step that is required at the ground station is calibration. So we have a simulated environment where the astronaut, they are getting trained. Maybe with some low Bluetooth energy device, we are capturing the data. So that calibration is also required so that data on board is accurate enough to predict their health. Yeah, that is another thing that is required.
And one thing, since calibration has come, one more important thing of which we are completely neglecting, I did not see a single session in this conference on accreditation of devices and of life sciences. And that is one aspect that we really need to think about. What are those basic standards with which we can compare safety issues in space? That also needs to be a part of our thinking process.
So thank you all for the patient listening. I think I thank all the eminent experts and the speakers here for a wonderful, I think very interactive session, I feel. And I thank SIA and ISRO for giving me an opportunity to be at this particular point of time here. Thank you all. Thank you. Very good evening to all.
Please give a huge round of applause for our distinguished panel. And I'm sure everyone here agrees with me that it was highly relevant and very insightful. Thank you. I request you all to please join us for a photograph.